Welcome to Ninon Speaks. I am Ninon de Vere de Rosa, and today we have a fabulous guest. But as I always say, I have always fabulous guests. They're always wonderful. They're always great. They always give some great inspiration to this world of confusion. And wow, is it getting confused out there? We've got more wars and more fighting in various places of the world, and I just don't know what's going on anymore. But we're going to go into a very, very happy note with NinonSpeaks Media Image. This is a show we do every single week, and what I do is I bring somebody to the platform where they can actually express who they are, what they are. We can find out about their books, about what they're actually putting into the world. And I think everybody is trying to put something in this world, especially things are going very, very different. We're kind of relying more on the internet, or not relying on it, but that's where the internet is going. Everybody's sort of bouncing on it and taking different directions and finding out how we can all sort of make a business, do a business. And it's all going through the internet. And of course, our show is also through the internet. So we get this incredible exposure, which is amazing, because I don't see really many places you can do that, and you can actually do it out of your home. I'm here in Las Vegas, and guess my guest is down under. She's in Australia, and her name is Lynda Dyer. She's quite an amazing woman. I've known her for some time because she's actually on another show that we do through Steve Toth, who is the producer, is in another show called Living Consciously, and of course we all try to live consciously, but some people live more consciously than others. But anyway, and actually Lynda Dyer is definitely one of those. She's done extremely well. You know, she was on The Secret. She was chosen out of many people, and she was actually part of The Secret. She also knows Bob Proctor, which we all know very, very well. And it's just amazing what she does. So before I go any further, let's welcome Lynda Dyer. How are you?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you've done quite a lot here. I mean, I've known you for some time because you've been on the you've been on Living Consciously for quite a long time now. And how do you like doing that show, by the way?
Oh, I absolutely love it. I look forward to it every week, and it's, you know, it's just those things I prepare for. I go for my early morning walk even earlier in the dark because it's early morning here. You can always if people are concerned about the world, then just ring me because I'm already into the next day. It hasn't ended.
Well, we always know there's going to be a next day because of you.
Yes, that's right. We're already up and into it.
So anybody tells me that there's no days any left, I'll just call you. And then I'll soon find out what's going on. But yes, what time is it there now? And what is it, 5 o'clock in the morning for you?
No, it's 9 a.m. I've already been up since 5. Yeah. Walk to the beach, see the sunrise, take my puppy dog with me, and he's exhausted now.
As long as you don't fall asleep, we're okay.
No, I'm good. Love the morning.
I've been reading, you know, all about, you've been kind of in the health business for many, many years, and you started it as a very young lady. Why did you go into the health business as a young lady?
You know, Ninon, I think I've been interested in the way we function and the body for a long, long time. I remember at school thinking I'd love to learn more about nutrition. I was a very active woman. I played representative tennis for the school and for my state, and also played cricket, which is unusual for women.
Yeah, I know cricket.
It was just... Yes, you do because of England. Great rivalry.
There you go.
It wasn't very big for women then, but anyway, I made the cricket team, and but my tennis was, you know, I think lived with a racket in my hand. Once I learned to play this game on a dirt road in bare feet, as you do as a child, thinking how on earth am I going to swing this racket around my back and somehow get it up here and then somehow meet a ball and get the whole lot over the net into a square. Oh my gosh. But you know what? It became almost like a compulsion. And I think too, you know, we didn't have the TV on, or we didn't even have a TV when we were growing up.
Well,
so my dad...
You didn't have internet or anything like that, right?
So no.
We weren't always sort of, you know, I watch children today, and all they're doing, they're like, there's a bunch of kids, and all they're doing is looking at their cell phone. They're not even talking to each other. They're talking to somebody else that's not even in the group. It's really quite funny.
And the same thing when I walk today to the beach. Everyone's on their cell phone, not enjoying the most magnificent sunrise, because this is where the sun's closest to Australia right now. So we're getting the most magnificent sunrises and sunsets, but nobody caught it because they were on their cell phone.
They're all missing out.
As a child growing up, we rode bikes.
Yes.
You know, we were out. My dad, we didn't know this as a child, but there's 7 of us. And he made our bikes. He would go to the tip and he would gather all the parts that he would need. You can buy them back from the tip, and he would he would work in his garage until all hours of the night, put these bikes together, paint them, put stickers on them, and as far as we were concerned as kids, they were brand new bikes. So we were out on our bikes. We would make billy carts. He would give us the little wheels off the lawnmower to put on the front of the billy cart, and we would ride. I think the worst thing for us was Mum was continually mending somebody.
Well, I think she was continuously making children. If there was 5 kids and 2 adults, that's the same as my family.
No, 7 children.
Oh, 7 children. Oh my goodness. You know, it occurred to me, I was thinking about my mom and, you know, things she did, that for three times a day they had to feed 7 of us because there was 5 kids and 2 adults. So we had to have breakfast, lunch, and then high tea, actually. We never really had dinner. But when I think of it, 3 meals a day that we had to be fed, you know, and you think about it, that's an awful lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I think Mum really taught us as kids growing up to be a part of that scenario. So it was very, I think, early on that we took roles. We were disciplined right from the word go. So we had rooms in the house that had to be cleaned. And even though I was becoming quite a good tennis player, I still couldn't go to that training until I'd picked my 8 cases of fruit or cleaned the kitchen or whatever the area of the house was. It was my responsibility. So we had our chores, and that's the way we were raised.
I think it's very different now. It doesn't seem to be that children have any chores at all, any sort of consideration to anybody else. And the unfortunate thing is what we're doing, we're now blaming all the kids. And it has nothing to do with the children. It's the parents or whomever's looking after them to train them to do these things. And I remember I did the same as you when I was a kid. I couldn't do anything unless everything was clean and put in order. I mean, it was just, but it wasn't if I'm going to do it. It was, I just had to do it. It wasn't any ifs and buts and later. It was just done.
You know, it was funny because now I was raising a son, and I was in the bathroom one day and I could hear this conversation through the window. And it was my son talking to his best friend. His best friend said to him, you know, I think you're a slave. And my son goes, why do you think that? And he said, you have to clean your shoes and collect sticks.
That's so funny. That's hysterical. My goodness.
That was slavery.
So through your life, you know, you had a pretty good sort of upbringing as of sort of a very definite homemaker and a very definite sort of how to become a woman and how to do all the things you needed to do. And then you got into this health business. It is quite funny because I'm reading that you actually got lupus. And with all the doctors, and I've heard about this,
I think
all the doctors and everything.
Yeah.
And you actually ended up curing yourself, which is something you learned when you were very young. So now you could actually use it because you had a lot of sort of knowledge about it.
Well, yes and no. I learned that, you know, I think the fitness industry has a lot to answer for because they taught us that to be fit, you have to be sort of, well, the terminology back then was half-cocked. In other words, your muscles were ready to go. Yeah, and that was incorrect, which meant we really never knew how to relax, how to really calm down. It was always like you were on the go. So we would train. My dad stopped them giving me weight training. He said, no, she's a woman. She's not doing weight training, which was a pity because I wanted to. But everything else. And then I swam a mile a day as well at the university. So I was always very active. Loved the activity, whatever activity was involved. It really wasn't until I became unwell that I started to really study the body. And I studied the body and thought, how did I become unwell? Then I know how to fix myself. Yeah. And so that was the rationale behind it.
Now the reason you wanted to fix yourself is you did not like what they were telling you and what they were doing in the hospital, correct?
Yeah. I wasn't getting anywhere. I was going and doing everything that they suggested, and one day, after 4 years, one day, and you know, I think it's interesting when you've been really well and you've got a lot of natural energy and you have a big heart, and then all of a sudden you fall down ill. It is such an unusual place to be, and so to keep telling somebody like a doctor that you're unwell, and it's not a nothing because you've always been well, you've always been the active one and what have you. One day my husband said to me, "You weren't very nice to the doctor." And I said, "I don't think you understand what it's like for me." I said, "Nice to the doctor?" I said, "You're going to put me in a box." I said, "I can feel this box." And I said, "So they're ticking off the list. Has she got this? Has she got this? Has she got this? Has she got this?" And once they've finished with the list, then I go into that box. And then I'm called a lupus sufferer. So now they know what tablets to give me. And I worked it all out, and I said, "I don't think you have any idea what's going on here." I said, "I have an idea of what's going on here, and I don't want that scenario."
Really?
I don't want to be boxed. I don't want to be ticked off. And it was on that day that I changed. It was on that day that I decided to make change. And he, thinking he was doing the right thing. And you know what? I know this is interesting for your viewers, but I think we've got to be very careful with our partners, and also sometimes a partner, in all their wonderfulness, if they in fact need to be needed themselves, sometimes they almost enhance your illness because that's when they feel the most needed.
Really? That's an incredible scenario. I would never have thought that. In other words, he was trying to protect you and take care of you, and maybe putting you in a wrong place.
Well, yeah, without him knowing. He was a gorgeous man.
He didn't do it purposely. No, of course not.
We had 20 beautiful years together. The only reason we're not together now is he wanted to retire, and I said, "Retire? That means continually get tired. That's not for me." I'm going to go in sideways and say thanks for the ride.
Well, yes, you are. You sort of, you do an awful lot. Now, you are, you just got back from Africa, and you were doing something with the young people over there, or you were helping. Give me a little what happened, and why did you go to Africa? Because it's usually rather dangerous right now going over there with all these different diseases floating around.
Well, when I was in school years ago, I studied Africa. I studied geography, and Africa came up. And I remember almost like being out of my body. I was there. I was associated in Africa as a teacher teaching us, and I loved hearing about the Maasai jumping up in the air and the pygmies and the way they roam. And just African culture intrigued me no end. It was so different to Australia, and I made up my mind right then and there I was going.
Really?
So I saved up for 4 years and put myself through university in America, and then I dressed up as a man and went to England to find my dad's family because a man gave me his ticket.
Now, wait a second, wait, hang on a second. You're skipping over. I dressed up as a man, like you're just throwing that over your shoulder. I was going to ask you about this dressing up as a man. Why on earth did you dress up as a man?
Because a man gave me his ticket. I'm a student. I've just finished 2 degrees in 2 years. I'm a little worn out because I've been swimming a mile a day, playing tennis for the university, running a dormitory. And it's time to go home, and everyone else flew back to Australia, and I went, how boring is that? So I decided to go to England and find my dad's family. He's from England. He's from Leamington Spa, Warwickshire. I'd been twice before, and I missed out on finding his family apparently by 2 kilometres. So I was devastated because we had such a lovely family, and I wanted him to be reconnected with his family. So I'm on the university campus, and I'm walking through, and I meet this guy, John, from England. And John goes, "Hi, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm about to go to England. I want to find my dad's family, and then I'm going to do an African safari on the way home." And he said, "Oh, great." He said, "I've decided to stay here." He said, "Hey, to England, and I'm staying here." He said, "Have you got your ticket yet?" And I said, "Oh, no, I can't afford the ticket yet. I've only just finished paying for the African safari." And he said, "Well, what, have you got a job? I said, yeah, I'm working for a Sri Lankan family and I'm doing all their after school care and cooking them a meal and cleaning their house and earning the money for my trip. And he said, well, why don't we swap? He said, I'll give you my ticket to England. like, you know, and you can, and I said, and you can have my job. That's perfect, because this lady's going to be so upset that I'm not going to stay. So I said, by letting her know that I'm going and she's got somebody to stay, will be wonderful. So my host mother, which give you at the University of Oregon, she cannot believe I'm doing this. She said, you can't dress up as a man. I said, just watch me. So she drives me to the plane. She drives me to the plane and she said, you know what, I'm going to stay out here just in case it doesn't work.
Just have to drive you back home again.
It's a great story, Federico. I'm walking down the plank and I'm going, okay, well, what can they do? They can either send me back to Carol, who's waiting in the car, or they can fly me to England and pay them later. What can I do? At the end of the day, you know, all I'm doing is dressing up as a man to go to England. I'm not killing anyone. So I walk down there. I've got my passport in one hand, my ticket in another, and she said, can I have your ticket, please? Ticket, right. That's John. The hood comes up on my jacket, hand the ticket, and she goes through the manifest and she ticks off John. So, right. She said, can I have your passport? Away. Because it's not the same name as my passport.
No, it's not quite.
The hood goes back. I become me, you know, the feminine me, if there was one, and I hand her the passport. And she goes, and she must have added my name to the manifest, because for the next 20-something minutes, the plane didn't move. They are totally confused about who this Lynda Dyer and this John is, and they can't find either one or the other of them. So in the end, can I have your ticket again? Sure. Passport, ticket, passport, a ticket. I have to remember what I'm doing at this point. I've got to really focus on whether
I'm confused. Wow.
And in the end, she says, okay, go on. I went, phew. So I'm sitting next to the window of the plane, and they came around the plane. And they're asking for either passport or ticket. Do you know they never asked for both of them at the same time? Passport or ticket? And I'm going, passport. That's John. Up goes the hood. Here's the ticket. Thank you very much. And I get the ticket back. And then the next lady comes around. Yeah, can we have your passport? I'm going, that's me. Oh, yes, thank you, madam. And hand the passport and get that back. And eventually, it seemed like forever, the plane takes off. And I go to England. And all the connections that God gave me were...
Story. I doubt if you could get through with that this day and age, but then it must have been quite funny. Now, were you a little nervous?
Yeah, I was. But you know what? I talk about it in my new book, Make It Happen Now, because that's exactly how I lived my life. Even though I was nervous, and I think it's exciting to be nervous and focused on where you want to go. You know, like I had a goal to find my dad's family. And I hadn't given up. I'd been there twice and I'd missed out, but I never gave up on finding his family. So this was the third time that I was going back to England to find, and I had to go there anyway to get on my African safari. So I thought, you know, the funny part about it is when I get to England, they put me in the declared section. I said, I've got nothing to declare. He said, you've got a tennis racket and a guitar. I said, yes, I sing and I play tennis. And I said, I brought them all to Australia. He said, I know you students, you want to sell your stuff in England. I said, I don't.
That's funny.
And anyway, so now I've got passport and for the first time, somebody standing there, hands behind the back, powerful position, looking. Passport, ticket, passport, ticket. Oh, it's driving me insane. I was thinking.
And you thought it was all over. Wow.
In the end, I'm thinking of all the stories I could tell him, and all of a sudden the truth just came up into my head, and I went, why don't you just tell him the truth? You're here to find your dad's family. You didn't have the money for the trip, and a man gave you his ticket. He's not coming back on it. Nobody's, you know, a seat was taken that was going to be taken anyway. It just had a different sexuality in the seat. And so I'm just about to go, look, and he goes, you can go through, madam.
Wow. Wow.
It was torture.
This was your journey on the way to Africa. I mean, bypassing into England and then going to Africa. So how old were you at this time? You were quite young. What, you were 22, 23?
No, I left Australia because I had to work 4 jobs for 4 years to save up the money to go to university in America. So I realised my field of recreation and fitness and health was really, that's what I wanted to do then.
Yes.
And so I say to do that. So I was 27 at this stage. It was I did my degrees. I finished in 76, and so it was 76. I was 26, and funnily enough, when I got to England, they made a mistake on my visa, and they said you're going to have to stay an extra week in England. I went, yes. That's excellent, and they have to pay for it because they made the mistake. So it would just, the universe will always provide. And,
and I think with your positive attitude and the way you think, and I think the story you've just told, and I doubt if we could possibly do that now on a flight, but at the same time, the tenacity of being able to go out there, the world is your oyster, and I don't think enough of, especially the younger generation, are really making advantage of it. They seem to think they've got to go down this road or do this, and everything's planned out for them, and that's not so at all. It's out there as an individual to live and enjoy and sort of, take it all in. There is so much to see. You don't have to stay in one place. Why do you think so many of our young people or younger people or even middle-aged people are like kind of not really sort of getting involved in anything? What's the problem?
I think today it's very much, and there's no two about it. I mean, I did all these things, but my self-image really wasn't good. I was a very shy girl growing up. At the age of between 7 and 11, I was continually told how cheeky I was, and that was very detrimental for me. So when I was doing my courses at uni, I won awards, and I wouldn't go and pick them up on the stage. Like, I could be very efficient, but I didn't really.
But you were shy at the same time. You knew what you wanted to do, but at the same time, you were shy.
And shyness, as a coach now, shyness is actually about somebody's taken your power away. And looking back, that was absolutely true. This continual, my aunties, my parents, whoever, everyone told me how cheeky I was. And at the point where I didn't know when to speak because I was sick of being told how cheeky I was. Yeah. And so I didn't want to speak. And so when public speaking courses came up at uni and I had to get up in presentations or go and get, I won an Outstanding Foreign Student Award, I wouldn't go and pick it up. They did everything they could to get me to the event.
What made you get into public speaking? Since you were so shy and you criticized as a child for being cheeky, and which made you even 10 times worse because you were trying to better yourself and you figured if you did this, you would be cheeky again, and you didn't want to do that because it was now embedded in your head. How did you force yourself to do it because you couldn't?
No, I had a big aha moment. A man yelled at me one day. We were working with, when I was working on the 4 jobs to put myself through uni, one of those jobs was working with 108 children, Aboriginal children and children from inland Australia that were brought to Manly Beach in Sydney here for health reasons. And I was the recreation officer. So I looked after 108 kids every day. And when I started that career, the man that was my boss at the time, he saw this boy taking a photo of me and him to take home to his parents because they don't stay for a while, then they go home. And I went, oh, no, always shying away, no.
Yes, yeah.
And this guy had enough, and one day he really yelled at me and he said, you are so selfish. I said, me, wow. The person that gives everything away? He said, yeah, you. He said, do you know, all you thought about when you hid your face or told that boy you didn't want a photo, all you thought about was yourself. You didn't for 1 minute think of the joy that he was going to have in taking a picture of the lady that's been looking after him back to his parents or back to his friends to say, this is the lady that worked with me at the Far West Home. At no time did you think of that.
And you didn't, but he didn't know. He didn't realize you were shy, and he didn't know that the reason you were, what wasn't a selfish reason, it was an insecure reason.
Absolutely. And even looking after 108 kids in front of him when he was there, I was terrible. I had to get up on this big stage in front of 108 kids. That terrified me. So I went through a lot of terror barriers, and then all of a sudden one night he was sick and I had to take over, and I did it. And it was like, it wasn't the stage I was afraid of. It was authority. It was these people that were continually telling me I wasn't good enough, or, you know, that's what I had to become.
So
and
that's
so,
very
you know, it's like a aha moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting to let our audience know that you can overcome these fears, and that the only way actually you overcame it was him being sick. But you really don't have to wait for someone to be sick. It's trying to overcome that fear. I did it another way, because I was like you. I was very, very shy, and I was always called stupid, and I was never what I was supposed to be. I was never what they told me I was. I wasn't. And I knew that, but they didn't seem to know it. And so I would always put myself in a position where I'd have to be in front. I would have to say something. So I always put myself in that place where I could not back off. And that's how I overcame it. But it's funny how we always relate back to our childhood as what's embedded in us, which is, and then this is how we conduct the rest of our lives. But we can break that, which is what you did. And that's a good message to any young person out there, that you can break it. If you really want to get up there and speak, go up there and speak. Do what you want to do, whatever it is.
But the other thing, Ninon, is that when you understand it, like now as a coach, I really understand it, and I'm going, okay, so what I was doing is I was allowing my ego, okay, the 4% of consciousness, I was allowing my ego to protect me. That's what egos do. They protect you. So the ego is saying, oh, no, don't get your photo taken, don't get your photo taken, and it's yelling at the subconscious, which is 96% of us. But see, I didn't understand this then. So what I do now is if I'm in that situation, I'll just do this. I'll wipe here and put it in my pocket. And what I'm saying to myself is, okay, ego, in your pocket. And I'll physically remove my ego.
Because that's quite simple. That's for anybody to do. So it's actually the ego that is taking over.
Yes. And it protects it. And so some people say, oh, yeah, but I don't yell or scream or carry on. I go really shy and go into my room. I said, it's the same thing. That's the way that the ego protects you. I was the same when I was unwell. I'd go to my room because I don't want people to see me unwell. That's an ego protecting you. So the ego, it can be very out there for a lot of people. And once you calm it, you know, and you go, okay, ego, you're going in my pocket, behave.
Okay, so that's like when somebody's in an argument and that other person walks off. That's like an ego thing of escaping and getting away from it all. And that's their ego.
It can be either the ego or a reaction, which leads to nothing. Reactions are nothingness. I think one of the things I'd love to teach everyone is how to respond. Just in that time, how can I respond to that? How can I respond to that little boy that's taking a photo of me? I can, for 2 seconds, put a smile on my face and put my arm around his shoulder. That's how I can respond. How can I respond to getting up on stage and receiving an award? I can go up there and I can if I give one message out to one person in that audience as to what I did in order to receive this award, then I've not only accepted it on behalf of me, but I've accepted it on behalf of the other people that would love the courage to do whatever I did to get that award.
Yes, because they look up to you, they don't know that you're absolutely scared, livid inside. They don't know that. All they don't see what's going on inside. All they see is you getting up there, receiving the award, thank you very much, blah, 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 and getting back off again. They don't know what's going on inside. So the message you're giving is, and it's funny, I always teach this, I always say to people, nobody actually knows what's going inside your head or inside your body until you tell them. Nobody knows anything about you until you tell them. They can assume.
That's exactly right.
They can assume that these things happen, or that's this, or whatever it is. So now I think a lot of people would like to find out, and sort of you were chosen to go in The Secret. The Secret's been a worldwide explosion. Everybody loves it. Well, maybe not everybody loves it, but a lot of people have read the book and they've seen the movie and everything else. I personally think it was amazing. and very truthful and very honest as to what it was, how it is, and how people think. How did you get into this? This is just amazing.
Well, I think after I found my dad's family in England, and that was a beautiful lady that helped me through a telephone exchange, and I had that extra week, and I went and met them, and then I came on the safari through Africa. So I did it was supposed to be a 3-month safari, but we broke down so many times it became a 6-month safari, and quite frankly, I didn't want it to end.
You loved every minute.
I loved every bit of it. I was jumping in the rivers until somebody told me to get out, and then I was, you know, the truck was falling through bridges, and I was all a part of that. I loved it. I ran, I think, a sports carnival in the middle of Nigeria because we were waylaid for 2 weeks, and all the natives came around and got involved. I just loved it. And at the end of that trip, I remember promising to always go back. So then I come home to Australia, and I start working at the university, and I become an activities director because now I've got my degrees. There's only 3 of us, and that's why they called me the pioneer. There was only 3 of us in Australia that had degrees in recreation and health, physical education movement. So I had so many job offers, and I got this job at the university, and then I met my husband there at the university. It's interesting how it all happened. And I could feel unwell. I wasn't well in Africa. In that trip through Africa, I got dysentery, as you do, and I actually, I lost the lining of my stomach. I came home with pins in my pants, and because nothing would fit on me, I was so thin, and I wasn't well. And then when I came back, I go through the university. And he kept saying, oh, we're going to get a result, we're going to get a result. He got excited. The sicker I got, the more excited he was. Okay. Anyway, after those 4 years of setting up a program at the university, I looked in the paper. There was a job at Royal North Shore Hospital, the first teaching hospital in Australia to take on a recreation officer to run health programs. Wow. This was so exciting for me because my goal, because I missed out on going to uni in Australia by 2 marks, and I had to work 4 jobs to go to another uni, now my goal was to change institutions, because people like me should be able to go to university, and people like me should be able to go to a hospital for wellness, not because we're sick. And so I wanted to change the whole face of these institutions. So when the job came up, I went, this is absolutely excellent for me. So I started working. I set up massive programs at the hospital, and I was working 9 hours a day, and I started to feel very unwell. I was like a workaholic. Yeah. I was like a child with a new toy, because this was just such a goal of mine to open up this hospital. And I had programs. I had 1,000 people a week coming into the hospital for wellness programs. I won an Outstanding Young Australian Award for my work there. It was just an amazing program. I loved every minute of it. And after I had my child, all of a sudden I went down like a ton of bricks, because when you've got an immune disorder, when you have a child, you give everything to the child, as we know women do. Yes. And quite often after birth, and you start really feeling it. And I kept having what I thought was a virus, and it was staff at the hospital that picked it up. And that's when I started going through the lupus clinics and all the rest of it.
But your child was born, your son was born okay, right? Everything was fine with him.
Yeah. Again, when he was 5 to 7, I noticed that he was getting a bit of asthma or something, and I went, you know what? You look like I used to feel. So I'm going to go and get you tested. He had asthma, but no, he's fine. He's 32 today, and he's a very happy young man.
Wonderful.
So everything was fine. It was just that it took a lot out of me. Mm-hmm. And also the work. I was so involved in my work, and my husband was a catering manager, so he worked at night. So until my son was born, it didn't matter if I worked late hours. There was nobody really to go home to. And then when my son was born, because my husband didn't go to work till 12 o'clock or 4 o'clock, he loved looking after our son. I went back to work.
Sure.
So I really didn't have
that. Nicely.
Yeah, wonderful actually. And then I really had the lupus, and I set my goal into recuperating. After 14 years of working at the hospital and I introduced natural medicines to Royal North Shore Hospital. I introduced Chinese medicine. I introduced foot reflexology, iridology. You could do your certificate there in those things. Yeah, there was controversy, but you know, so what?
But that didn't seem to, none of those rules don't seem to bother you.
No, because you know what? It was $1 million business. What was the hospital going to do? Close me down?
I don't think so.
They didn't have. I mean, it was a rotating business. I created $1 million business for the hospital in wellness. So they weren't going to close me down. They would be pretty silly to do that. So I had the gumption then, after 6 years, to introduce the natural therapies as well as, and oh, it was just amazing. People learned to swim, to do aerobics, to cook. We brought the disabled in. We brought the elderly in. We ran a $500,000 venture in travel. I had people running all around Australia, again, the snow everywhere. But we ran different trips like that. And I started to seek more information about wellness. So I was starting to learn from these people that I was hiring as teachers about the insides of my body. One lady was putting me onto minerals, and I started to learn more and more about me. And then that's why I started to cure myself. I left the clinic. I still remember saying to the doctor, I won't be back. I wrote him a 6-page letter saying no thanks. And I walked out of the hospital. The sun's on my face, and I went, oh, girlfriend, you know what to do. I'd been introduced to Bob Proctor's programs, and I said, you know what to do. You've got to decide. You've made the decision. Now you've got to believe you can do it.
Yeah, because you were a facilitator with Bob Proctor, weren't you?
Yes, I became his number 1 facilitator for the Asia Pacific area.
Yeah, because Bob Proctor has, you know, for our audience out there who has not heard of him, but I would doubt that, he's a very well-known man, extremely well-known. So to get sort of evolved with him, this was such an honor to you.
Yes.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. He called me the little dynamo.
Oh, sweet.
That's funny.
I can see him, I've met him actually, and I can see him saying that.
Yeah, yeah, so he offered me, in this natural health company that I ended up joining to get myself well, he was one of the speakers. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't going to go to their next convention. I heard he would be a speaker, and I went. And I said to myself, you know, I really started to believe this stuff. I really did. He was on stage, and I said to myself, if you don't get up now and walk out of this room in front of 2,500 people, you're not going to meet him, because 2,500 people are going to be ahead of you.
Yes.
Got up. And I walked out of the room, and he'd come off stage, and there he was standing there. It was the most amazing sight, and I was the only one. And I walked straight up to him, and I said, Bob Proctor, I said, boy, I just want to share with you what I've been doing with your programs. Thank you very much for all the stuff you do. I've taken it into prisons. I've had prison guys come out and go really well. I put it into the TAFE colleges here in Australia. I've changed all the programming, but don't tell anyone. And I said, I just love it. I love your program and what you do. I feel wonderful within myself. I just wanted to share that with you because, you know, it's amazing. And he said,
well, wait a second, Lynda. You had guts to walk up to him, and you even were smart enough to know that if you got out there ahead of everybody else, that you're going to be in the right place at the right time. So this was kind of a little bit of a plan on your side so that you could meet him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then he said, do you have a card? So I hand him my card, thinking nothing more of it. I'm just absolutely stoked that I can, you know, I'm in front of Bob Proctor.
Of course.
And then all of a sudden, that would have been April. That's when they have their conventions, March, April. And then I get a call in July. And I still remember being in my office, and this phone call comes in saying, this is Bob Proctor's secretary. He would like you to be one of his facilitators.
Wow.
Screaming from America. I was so excited. Absolutely excited.
Absolutely, because this is like 1 in a million. I mean, The Secret and then the Bob. Oh, my goodness.
Well, it was because of all of that, and I was starting to get well now, and then all of a sudden it was one of the people that was in that program with Bob Proctor when he came to Australia. He ran his first facilitation program that I was in, and another guy that was in that program, he got involved later with Rhonda, the lady that The Secret, and he suggested she talk to me because I'd cured myself of lupus. That's how it happened. Rhonda rang me and said, would you come down to Melbourne so we could film you? She filmed me for 5 hours. I nearly
Wow.
missed the plane. She was so excited about my stories and what I'd done, and in the break she would ask me questions about her children and about herself, and of course, being the coach, I would answer them. And then she'd say, film her, film her. It was so funny. I'm not actually on the first film of Secret. They took enough footage for 6 secrets.
Wow.
They were going to do one specifically on health, and I was going to be on that, and so that's why I say I was one of the 58 people filmed from around the world to do with The Secret.
And is that coming out, or is it? It's not out yet, right?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it was a bit scary for her, I think, with the way The Secret was accepted so amazingly around the world. And so who knows what's ahead, but all that footage is still...
We don't know what's ahead, but and I don't even know what's ahead for you, because I'm getting to sort of understand that there is no stopping in anything you want to do. And it's like just coming back from Africa, and I think you had some beautiful stories of a lot of the people there, and what you did for them, but also of what you felt within yourself of doing what you did, and to see their faces change as the days went by.
Look, amazing.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I know you mentioned that before, of how their faces kind of lit up when you were doing certain things.
Well, when I was coaching some clients, I'm a business coach as well. I was coaching some clients, and one of them mentioned that she was going to Africa, and I said, oh, tell me a bit about that. And I said, I'd love to go back. I promised the African people when I was there in 77 that I would come back, and I said, so that's a pretty good time to go back. And so that's how it just started, like that. So I started to get involved with this project of going to Africa. And so I then mentioned it to another coaching client, and that coaching client said, oh, well, why don't I put it out on Facebook, and we'll get donations in, and we'll do this. And she got 40 boxes of donations. 40 boxes. We don't know what to do with it now. We've got so much. It's just, people were so gracious. It was just amazing. We were over the moon. So anyway, we went in. In the end, I said to her, you've got to come with me. You can't just get all those donations in and not go. Those people that donated would want to hear from you. So why don't you come with me? Me, she said. She had no idea. You talk about her self-image change. She's a gorgeous lady today, I can tell you. And anyway, her husband said, go. You know, we'll look after things back here. You go and do the work you want to do. Yeah. So together with another couple of ladies, the ladies who actually organised the trip, we went to Africa. But we knew that even though the program was about sponsoring kids through school, the two of us knew that we needed a project. We wanted an actual project. So on this trip through Africa, every day we were going somewhere. There were 2 or 3 villages to visit. There was a baby's orphanage. Well, this lady that was organising the trip, she did an amazing job. She would go and have all the meetings, and I'd look at Alison and go, we're not going to stand here for 2 hours. Where are the kids? So we ran.
So there you go. Lynda
we went in with the babies. So her and I got in with the babies, and I got onto the little babies. That was me, my mother, nurturing bit, and Alison was with the younger children, and together there was hardly any conversation. We just took over. We just helped the people who do this every day. They were grateful for the break, and we were playing games with the kids. We were feeding a baby in this arm, feeding another baby in this arm. You know, she was washing 26 kids in a bathtub with no soap, just water. We ended up feeding them. They have beans, rice. That's it. No cutlery. They use their hands. Then they had their wash, and they went into their proverbial bedrooms, all bunk beds, you know, blue for the boys, pink for the girls. That was just that morning. Once we left there was something else to go to that afternoon, and then something else to go to the next day. So there was so much that we actually did there and met beautiful people, and then we were taken to this village. Now, we had taken over a couple of $1,000 that people graciously given us, and we had it in an envelope, and we just thought, when we find this project, well, what's going to be right? we met this guy, his father Stephen, and he's in his last village, he'd built a bakery, and he'd put some kids into a soccer team that were going really well. And that village was now self-sufficient. And that's what we wanted. We wanted to make a village learn how to become self-sufficient, not dump money or goods on somebody and say, oh, we feel good about what we've done. It was more about what can we do to help you help yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
So
yes.
This guy, when we got to his village, he was almost crying. I don't know why the bishop sent me here. I've done all this work in the other village, and this village has nothing, he said. They don't pay us to be priests over here. He said, I'm making $35 a month.
Wow.
That's what we all live on here. So, and he put this beautiful lunch out for us and gave us jackfruit, and, the poor give so much. Yeah. Just amazing. So he got our heart, and I looked at this other girl, Alison. We've become the dearest friends. I looked at her. We didn't even speak, Ninon.
Wow.
And we just nodded. We both nodded, and we knew this the man we were going to give the money to. And I said, what is it going to cost for you to build that chook house that you're looking at so that you can have the eggs flowing for the village? You can kill some of the chickens as they get older and eat them. But you can sell the eggs and bring money back in, and that will provide the food, and then you'll have eggs for the village, and then you can maybe buy a piggery. Those things that you wanted, what is all that going to cost? So he took us, first of all, to a little church that they'd built. It's like a community centre, but it had no floor. And I said, okay. We nodded again, Alison and I said, what is it going to cost to put a cement floor on here so the community can come together? He said, $200. I said, here's $200. Go and get it started. Within 24 hours, I swear you not, he had it done. There's photos of the kids and the mothers carrying. Now, they don't have taps. They had to down to wherever the water came from.
There's another thing to this story, and what it is that he was very honourable. He could have taken the money and said, well, we'll do it in a couple of days, or, when you leave, and that could be the end of it. But he did it so fast because he wanted to be honourable to you. He wanted to show you what you had done.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. He had a reputation. As far as we were concerned, this was the man we wanted to work with, or the woman. It wouldn't have mattered who came to us. No. But somebody that makes things happen like that. He'd already planted a whole bunch of bananas, and he'd only been there 2 months. And here he was, 24 hours. He did a concrete floor. He went and bought the concrete in his car and came back. The men in the village came up straight away and mixed the concrete in with the dirt. The children and the boys went and got the water and poured it in, and they laid this floor and sent us photos. So
I think that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. It's amazing, Lynda, the difference that you started at a very young age of what you wanted to do and your thought process, because I don't believe anything happens by accident. I truly don't. I don't believe that. It's like, you coming on the show today, that was not an accident, and it wasn't planned that you were going to come on the show. This was a very short notice thing that you and I did. But I think to let you know, or let the world know out there of what can happen, and if you just put that little effort out there of something you had many years ago, and you saw an opening, and you grabbed that opening and you ran with it.
Yeah. Do you know, Ninon, I often wonder, when kids are little kids and you say to them, what are you going to be when you grow up? Yeah. I'd like to follow some of those children's lives and have a look at who they are, who they become, because I always was going to be a missionary. When I was a little child, I wanted to be a missionary. That's what I wanted to be.
But you kind of are, but you're a little bit above. You actually make money and bring in stuff and do stuff yourself. You do a lot of that, but that's where your heart is.
But if I wasn't making the sort of money I'm making through my coaching and training, I couldn't go to Africa. You see, that statement that the best thing you can do for a poor village is not be a poor person is perfectly correct. There needs to be a nexus point in our life where we've got money coming in and we're helping people. That's the nexus point of life to me.
That's what you just did with this guy that didn't have any money, because you just gave me a story, a scenario, that the guy now has chickens. Now the chicken are going to lay the eggs, and they're also going to have other chicks, and then when the chickens get older, you can eat that, you can sow the eggs, you can buy more little chickens, and this is revolves, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's how you create a business. And that's what you created with this man, and you saw potential.
Now he's coming out to
man.
Australia. He's coming out here. He's been sponsored by a man that built the bakery for him to come out to Australia in September. So we've got massive fundraising events happening in September and October. I'm getting all my friends together on the north side of Sydney, and my friend Alison's getting everyone together on the south side of Sydney. We're going to run 2 or 3 or 4 big fundraising events, and we want to send him back the money to feed the chickens, and we want to build the high school. So we're going to give him enough, we hope, to the first room of his high school. Those kids walk 7 miles to school every day. When they get to school, they sleep because they're so tired. Wow. And then they walk 7 miles home. Now, some of the girls are lucky to get home because, you know, they're teenage girls, and it's just really awkward. They can be sold off for cattle.
Look what you've created by I'm going to say, look what you created by that ticket and dressing up as a man, going full circle. I mean, you never know where the guts or anything's going to lead to. You don't know. You have no idea.
And I knew I was going back to Africa, but I didn't know when. You don't need to know the how. It's really important for the viewers to understand. I didn't know the how. I didn't know how I was going to get to Africa. There's been so many times. I wrote years ago called Good Grief, and when Africa went through a whole bunch of stuff, I sent a box of those books over there to be distributed. The same as I did when there was an earthquake in China, and I flew to China to help them get through the earthquake.
Yes, I was to ask you about that, because you actually did go over to China and you actually helped them there. What exactly provoked you, or why did you go to China? How did you end up going there?
I was actually going there to teach NLP. So after I completed a lot of
what's NLP?
Neuro, N for neuro, the mind and the brain. L is language, linguistics, the language we use, how we can use positive language to do anything we want. And programming, the way we were programmed as a child, what parents you had, what they said, what your values are, your experiences were. That's your program. And that's everyone sees things differently. So I was teaching that.
So NLP means that, but now we've got to that stage. Why don't you give me your website address so people can actually go to your website and see all what's going on? What is your website?
Yeah, it's Mind Power Global.
Mind.com. You can reach Lynda there.
.au.
Oh, .com.au. Okay.
Yeah, because AU for Australia. Yeah.
Yes, Australia. So anyway, so we'll get back to let's get back to you going to China.
Well, in the while I was over there teaching these people NLP, I was invited back on the 12th of May 2008, and I flew into the country on the 12th of May 2008. That was the day of the earthquake. Now, I knew enough about this material inside of me to know that I'd been sent there for a reason. Now, some people can say that's egotistical, but other people can say, no, she just believed that whatever an idea comes to you, whenever the universe sends you an idea, you are capable of achieving it. And on that day, that's all I thought of. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm here in China for a reason. There's an earthquake. I'm teaching coaches. Then we need to get involved in that. So I put it out there to the coaches, and I said, you know what? There's an earthquake. You guys have come from all over the world to learn NLP here in Shanghai. I'm looking for people that would like to come, because I'm going to and after I finish training you, of course, I'm going. So who wants to come with me? And one lady put up her hand and she said, what a stupid idea. I started to laugh. I said, isn't that funny that you've already worked out why I can't do it?
Oh, I love that answer. You've already worked
And I said, why that's so funny is because I don't waste my time on that. That took so much energy from you.
She spent all that time figuring it out why you should not go.
why I shouldn't go. Whereas all I think
shouldn't
about
go.
How can I make it happen? That's the title of my new book. How can I make it happen? That's it. I just focus on that.
Listen, how's your new book going?
I'm up to chapter 10. It's very exciting. I've just finished the African safari in the 70s and finding my dad's family. I cried all the way through it because it was very emotional. And I'm laughing. There's a lot of funny things in the book, as you can imagine from me.
Well, because you have a sense of humor. I mean, hello.
And then I've got about 3 or 4 more chapters, and I wrote my last chapter while I was in Africa recently. That's going to be the last chapter in the book, because the last page is going to say to be continued.
There you go. Now, you just mentioned something about writing a book, and I told my audience out there that you don't ever have to start at the beginning and go all the way through. You can write a chapter whenever it comes into you. You can write down anything that ever comes into your mind at any time, and that'll fit into the appropriate part of the book. So you never have to go from the beginning and write all the way through to... That's not how you write a book. You can write a book from any place, any time, whatever you're feeling, which is probably what you do, I'm sure that is. And then you, at the end, then you get it all put together. So it's sort of, a lot of people don't write because they think, well, I've got to start from the beginning, and it's, but that's not the case at all. You can start and write a book any day about any page, any paragraph, any chapter at any time. And that's, now you also, your last book, was it not a bestseller? What was the name of your last book?
Yes, I've had an amazing. I met a phenomenal publisher called Vicky Winterton, and she's done all my books. So my first little book is called Good Grief. What a Wonderful Life I Had, and I wrote that after I lost my beautiful mum, my dog, was my daughter, and 6 people in my life in 6 months. And I thought, how do you get through this? And one day I'm hitting a ball against a tennis court, as you do every morning, or I used to do. And I got a clear message that your dog is with your mum up in heaven. And I went, why didn't you tell me you needed my dog for my mum? And I started laughing, and it was like this whole thing fell off my shoulders. And I went back, and in 3 hours, I wrote that book. And it was my dog saying, I had a wonderful life. Stop grieving for me. Get over it and get on with your life.
Was this Vicky that sort of helped you get through this, or?
Well, no, when Vicky heard about my book, and then she rang me and she said, I heard that you also cured yourself of lupus. And I said, yes, I did. She said, would you like to be in a book? And it's called Wounded, Survive, Thrive. So she put a chapter. I was then a co-author in a chapter. Yes, and then she said, can you send me your original book, and we'll get that out and publish it properly, because I'd never had it published. It was 5,000 copies and thousands of copies are all over the world, but I'd never really published it. So she published it, and within 2 weeks it went bestseller. So then she did Ready, Aim, Inspire, and that was the work that I did in China, how I inspired the Chinese through the grief of an earthquake. And then she did Ready, Aim, Influence, and my chapter in there is the work I did in the hospital and how I influenced the disabled to start being self-sufficient, the elderly, to say I did it, and I, took them all over Australia, what have you. So all those chapters are in a co-authored, and then I thought, you know what, it's time for me now to put all my chapters in my book. And everyone kept saying, we want your book.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely very appropriate, and I definitely think we definitely need your book. I'm also going to say something else, though, because all through your life, it's funny because it's never been about money. It always seems to be what you're bringing over is always helping somebody else, or seeing how you can help somebody else with the knowledge you have. And I think that's, most people are sort of, well, how much am I going to get paid, and what do I get for this, and how much do I get for that? You have never mentioned that once in the whole hour, because we're sort of an hour up, and you've never mentioned that, but you're mentioning about how much you give to people and how much you help people. Do you think that's kind of a better, well, obviously a better way for you because it worked, but you didn't do it for that reason. You just kind of did it. Do you think people are a little bit too selfish money-wise?
Well, I think people give too much power to money. And so by giving money the power, you in fact are walking around disempowered. You're disempowered to money. Whereas like right now, I haven't worked for a week or so. I mean, very busy when I got back from Africa, but I haven't worked for a week or so, and I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. And then I thought, well, it will all happen. This has allowed me the time to do another chapter of my book, to edit all the editors editing, which takes quite a bit of time, and to see my dad, who's 90, and catch up with him and get all his stuff organised. And I'm still very busy. I'm just not coaching right now. It's so interesting. I mean, next week it all starts again, but right now it's been wonderful because I've had that time to put into, and so there is a law of rhythm. And so if we're up here all the time, it's not a good place to be. We wear out. I was there all the time. I got lupus.
Yeah,
we need to come down.
You wore yourself out. And you didn't listen to the illnesses that you had and things that were happening to you. You didn't listen to that. You said, I'll get over it, and you just kept working. And then you just dragged your body down.
That's partly because I didn't feel good enough. See, what people do when they're a workaholic is when they don't feel totally good enough, that's like they're proving it all the time. I'll prove that I am good enough, you know. I'll prove that I can do 2 jobs. I'll prove I can do 4 jobs. I'll prove, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm sick of proving. When am I going to prove it?
But it's funny how you've eased into it, and how it sort of all worked for you, and how everything is kind of, and I think it's because of your disposition of where you put yourself, and I think it's definitely the intentions you have with inside of yourself of what you mean and how you want to do something, and it's not this money thing that, you know, I'm going to do that for you, I want something back. That's not your attitude.
It's about the giving. You know, the year that I worked in China, that year my goals, Ninon, were to get a charity I could get my teeth stuck into. Well, I think an earthquake in China was a pretty good charity.
Yes.
And secondly, to go global.
Yeah.
Well, it all happened in one fell swoop. By going into China and helping them with the earthquake, a magazine, Roger Hamilton from Wealth Dynamics, picked it up, invited me to write a 4-page story in his international magazine. All of a sudden, my company went global. He's inviting me to speak in Hong Kong, and I went, oh my gosh, I just got my 2 goals done, because I gave.
You got all your goals done on that. We've got to close the show. Unfortunately, the hour goes by awfully fast, especially when you are talking to Lynda Dyer. Believe me, this woman, but she is so sincere and so, I don't want to use the word sweet, because it's not powerful enough, but you are so sincere and so nice about everything you do and how you got there, and she's never had this ego thing going, and I think that's what we need to lose our ego, be natural, just be who you are, and don't forget, you've got to read her book, you've got to go to her website. What was your website again? www what?
Mind Power Global.
mindpowerglobal.com. That's where you're going to reach
.com.au.
Got to put the AU means Australia. I forget to say that. So .com. Again, Australia. AU. It's been incredible. Thank you to all my audience out there to tune in to NinonSpeaks Media Image. It's been amazing. All my guests normally are amazing. They just have great, honest, beautiful stories. And now I've been working with Lynda for a couple of years at least now, and now I have really got to know who she is. I've heard a lot of stuff, and we do the Living Conscious every week through Steve Toth, who is the producer, who has Conscious Evolution Media out of Denver. He's a great guy, and he's put, you know, us together, and now I was able to do this. So you see, you never know what goes on in this world. You make that step and these things happen. Thank you, everybody. Lynda, thank you so much for coming on at such short notice. The story is amazing. The secret. Bob Proctor, Africa, China, you name it, we had it. Thank you so much. Take care. I will see you all next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Lynda.
Bye.